Jane Rosenthal is an Oscar and Emmy-nominated producer behind some of the most culturally defining work of the last few decades, from Meet the Parents to Bohemian Rhapsody and The Irishman.
It's staying curious about everything, and then what you think can resonate and what you want to live with for years.
But her most defining move came in 2001, co-founding the Tribeca Festival with Robert De Niro in the aftermath of 9/11 to help rebuild Lower Manhattan.
We weren't firefighters, steel workers, so what could we do as artists to give back to our community? That first festival had well over 100,000 people down here.
Today, Jane continues to push the boundaries of storytelling. She proves that creativity is not just an art form, but an engine for innovation and impact.
Some of the more creative things that have happened on the set has been when you're told, oh, there's no more money here, figure it out. Figure it out. You got so many hours, and why didn't we think of that to begin with? That's much better.
That's Jane Rosenthal. Welcome to the Business of Creativity series, brought to you by Amazon Ads. Jane, this is absolutely wonderful. Thank you for allowing us to come into your wonderful home. And I love the fact that we're surrounded by your portfolio, so to speak, here, aren't we? This is just brilliant. This is obviously about the business of creativity, but the thing that I think is really, really crucial is what it can learn from the entertainment industry in a sense of, one, how you gain attention, fundamentally important in the information age, and two, how creativity brings people together. I'd just love to know a little bit of your background. How, where are you a New Yorker? Where did Jane start?
Well, a lot of New Yorkers seem to come from someplace else. I started in Providence, Rhode Island, sort of dragged to these various shows. I actually can still do almost all the lines from shows like The Balcony and Dark of the Moon and Middle of the Night, all these shows that she was in. And, that was at a time when Providence was really kind of the armpit of New England. It wasn't as revitalized and quaint as it is now. When I go back, I'm like, wow, this is a nice place to live.
This has changed.
This has really changed.
So that sense of the entertainment industry or was bred early into you, and then...
I didn't know it was an industry.
Yeah.
I just knew it was like storytelling and make-believe, and, it was fun.
But then you come to the Big Apple, and you then become this amazing producer. Well, the journey from the small town to the Big Apple and becoming this incredible... Well, how did that occur?
Well, I had gone through a special program called the Alternative Learning Project under Title III. I was able to take a lot of classes at Brown. And when I was 15 and 16 and ended up taking a lot of classes that were, quote, semiotic classes, which was new at the time, and took a lot of film classes and in English classes, and then was able to transfer those credits to NYU, where I was at the Gallatin School and was able to take courses it wasn't the Tisch School of the Arts. It was a film department. I had wanted to be an actress, but my parents wouldn't pay for me to go to school if I was acting. So I thought, oh great, I'll major in film and television, and then I can act in these in these movies. And then I slowly realized that I wasn't interested in acting because there were so many people that were far more talented than I was, and I liked telling people what to do. So I wanted to be a producer.
Sort of in a sense, making it happen rather than being at that front.
Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting going back to that, because we often find people often want to do the opposite of what their parents did. You had this wonderful kind of, I suppose, entertainment industry as a different different matter, and it got into your blood, into that idea of entertaining, that idea of engaging with people. So
although I have to say, when I said I was majoring in film and television, my father thought that meant I could fix the television when I came home. Like, why were there all of this, fuzzies? Well, you're majoring in television, fix it.
Not understanding quite what this job was.
Exactly.
So what was your first big break into producing? How did that happen?
Well, I was still interested in acting, even though I wasn't majoring in it. And I think that one of the things about, being a good producer is knowing what everybody does on a set. So one of the programs at NYU was that you could observe sessions at the actor's studio. And if you did that, though, you had to work. The first workshop I worked on was called The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, that Pete Masterson had written and was directing. He wrote that with Larry L. King, based on a Texas Monthly article, and it was a big success at the Actors Studio. One of Pete's really close friends was the writer William Goldman, and
one of my great heroes.
He was the
fantastic
best.
Man, William Goldman. I'll talk a little bit about. I'll say something about it, but please do carry on. It's fantastic.
Bill came to see it, and he brought a friend of his who was at the time buying rights to turn into film and theater, a woman named Stevie Phillips, and she ended up buying the rights to take the show from the Actors Studio to off-Broadway.
To be on Broadway.
Yeah, and then eventually Broadway, and I ended up going with that. Simultaneously, because this was just while I was in school, I had a part-time job working at CBS in what was also the sports department, but I had people were asking for tickets to this show that they were reading about. It had gotten really good reviews in things like Newsweek and Time Magazine, and I guess because it had the whorehouse in it, people wanted to go see it, and suddenly they were saying to me, what did you do with this show? Would you like to come and talk about the entertainment business? So that ended up leading to a job at CBS when I graduated, and then I moved to LA. It all sounds very simple and easy. There was a lot of nights I'm I had to study, I had to go to classes, I was up early, I was eating on the trains, I was pizza on the train.
I remember seeing a documentary about Frank Sinatra and his life, and from the outside we had this sort of seamless rise, this famous. But if you looked at it from his side, there were huge moments of doubt, huge moments when he could have been forgotten. He made the right decisions, and his career progressed. But it's always the way from the outside. People think, "Oh, that was easy." No. From the inside, very difficult. But so then you this is fantastic. We could have lost you to sports.
I know I could have been in sports. But I worked on the first couple of years of the NFL Today show. I learned what live television was. What I didn't realize till a number of years later, actually, that there was one room at CBS, and all the big bettors would go into this room because you could get the feeds from all over the country. So you're always on the clock of what was happening live. What I also didn't realize is when Brent Musburger would say, "You're looking live at Foxborough Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts." That was a signal to the bettors that there was no snow, no rain, and the field conditions were dry or whatever the field conditions were. So I learned a lot about all kinds of things, not just sports.
Do you know what's interesting about that? A little mantra I say to people is do interesting things, and interesting things will happen to you. And because in a way you can't, to a large extent, you can't control the future, but if you're doing stuff now, making it as interesting as possible, making connections. You just do not know what doors are going to open,
not at all.
And it can change everything. We often say to brands, how do you change need into want? I need a pair of trainers. I want Nike. That's the kind of. You are in. I want to go and see that movie. I mean, you're at the kind of that point where it really is, because if I don't see a movie this week, I'm not going to starve. Right. I'm not going to that. So you've got to constantly have that sense of, I want people to watch this, and this is something that I think brands could learn from. How do I make people want me rather than just need me? And that genius of storytelling, how you have a process that you go through. Do you have a kind of, this is what we want to do, or is it just, let's see what comes in and see what we can do something with that?
No, I think if you just sit back and let things come to you, then you're at the mercy of what comes to you, and that you want to be able to go outside of that. So even if you look at De Niro's career over the years, even though he was funny in so many movies, he didn't step out to do a comedy till after he had done Goodfellas. Then he did Analyze This, and then it was, okay, he enjoyed doing comedies and wanted to have fun. It was, for him, it was, using a different skill set, a different muscle in terms of, being an actor. But, it's different. When I was at a studio, you had to have that Christmas release, that summer release, even though our business is completely changing right now. And as a producer, we kind of do what we believe we want. And also, so much in this business, people say no all the time, and so you have to find projects that you love and are determined to do no matter what, and for different reasons. And sometimes they're successful, and sometimes they're not. But I think you end up learning more from your failures than your successes.
But that's good. It's interesting that, because one of the themes that's going through lots of the business people we talk to is that they all start with a passion for something. They didn't sort of wake up one morning and say, I've got all this data and it's told me, people are spending more time at the beach rather than they are in the mountains. And they virtually all of them started with a kind of passion. I think I could make this better, and I believe in this. And that's the great lesson that you make to all those business people, that you've got to believe in something. We're living.
It's got to be authentic, because because I think an audience sees through that, no matter how segmented the audiences are right now, and whether you're on your phone, how are you getting? Why are you stopping at this Instagram or this TikTok or whatever it is? I mean, your audience have become so fractionalized right now, where I mean, it's much different than when you could just put out one major campaign and people were going to sing every jingle, and it's how you're capturing the attention of the audience and making them want something.
But I love that thing you say about authenticity, because at the core of creativity, there is a thing about what powers creativity, and the thing that powers creativity is the truth. Believe it or not, it's truth.
Yep.
And
wasn't that a thing? Truth in advertising?
Yeah.
Wasn't that something people said?
Yeah. So I think that finding that truth, finding that thing that connects people, is the most important thing. But as I say, we're drowning in data, and it sort of ends up in a kind of place that is rather boring, rather than, I passionately believe in this, I passionately believe this could be a great story. And of course, the other thing that you're doing, and again, this is why I think it's so interesting for people to listen to what you've got to say, Jane, because you're about storytelling. And actually, there is a truth about a brand. A brand is just a story.
Right, yeah.
It's a story. Why did you start? How did you start? And relating that to people is crucially important. But finding, for you, finding those stories is very, very difficult, obviously, unbelievably. And I'm just fascinated, is there a sort of button in you that goes, this really connects with me? Is it just about being aware, looking around, understanding, I bring that world in?
It's staying curious about everything, and then what you think can resonate and what you want to live with for years. It's like, sometimes with making movies, it's, again, I go back to people say no all the time. So even on something like The Irishman, where you had Scorsese, De Niro, Pacino, basically doing what their version of, a sequel, their brand and kind of mob movies. It took us 10 years to get that off the ground. People didn't say yes to that immediately. And you look at what we did with technology at that point was actually groundbreaking. If we had waited probably another 4 years, the movie would look quite different in terms of where we are right now with AI and deep fakes and what you could do. But that was something we were passionate about doing, and it took 10 years.
I had a friend of mine who's a writer. He said he wasn't no. He said, I'm surrounded by people with the power to say maybe. Right. And he viewed maybe as even worse than no, because at least we'd know, I got to know.
It's better to get a quick no than a maybe.
Yeah, a maybe, yeah. So you touched on something else there, and that sort of the use of technology and how technology is a friend to creativity. It aids creativity. I remember the story about The Irishman and how you use technology to kind of make them look more the part. The danger we have, I think, when obviously, the dreaded word AI, if people say that, but they see it as a way of taking out cost rather than a way of creating opportunity. And I think what you did with The Irishman showed how it created opportunity, because without that technology, it kind of probably wouldn't have worked.
Well, we didn't use AI. With The Irishman, it was more traditional VFX, and it was really, we might have used some version of an early model of AI. But now when you're talking about AI and you see what can be done, I look at it as a collaborator, as a creative collaborator. And look, the genie's out of the box. So we are all going to be dealing with AI no matter what business we're in. It becomes incumbent on both the tech companies and whether if you're in entertainment, the guilds, the studios, the unions, to start to train people for jobs that won't be obsolete, and there'll be new jobs created. And I think that's actually exciting. I got to work quite a bit with AI doing The Wizard of Oz at the Sphere.
It's interesting that, because I like the way you say it's a collaborator. And actually, I wish I had said it, it wasn't me, but I read somebody the other day said, humanity is AI's greatest asset, because without our imagination, without our input, it's going to diminish in value, because it won't be creating new things. I think of it as a collaborator, not a tool. That's the mistake. And actually look at it in terms of, here are opportunities that it's going to create. That's what's going to be fantastic. And
certainly for the creative minds, the creative businesses, I think that gets that can be very exciting. You are seeing, there's a number of, and we have them at the festival where we've done AI films. I keep saying I wish we weren't calling them films, because it's a new creative class that is coming into.
Redefine it.
That's redefining people who've never been to film school, who've never been to art school, who are sitting there coming up with things, because now all these tools are accessible. As long as you have a computer, you now have, or even just your phone, you have these tools accessible, and you are seeing a new creative class that's coming into our societies. Yeah. I
mean, it is a wonderful thing, isn't it, that we've liberated creativity in that sense. Now And I think, again, if you're a business, you've got to remember that you're surrounded by people, you're trying to talk to people who in themselves are constantly expressing themselves and able to do something. So if you're not talking in a kind of way that's engaging with those people, then your communication's going to fail. Mind you, I do love that quote that says, we're all artists, but some of us shouldn't exhibit. That's the only,
Yes.
That's the downside, isn't it? But
Exactly.
we'll deal with the downside. We'll deal with that.
Yeah, look, everybody, just because you can post a pretty picture on Instagram doesn't mean you're a photographer.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, editing is fundamentally life, isn't it?
And people have to learn how to edit too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a skill, to tell stories or to be able to create something original with how you're cutting a picture.
Yeah.
The more truthful a piece of communication, the more power it has. Which is why I applaud hotel brand Premier Inn's promise that you know what you're getting with Premier Inn. People don't stay there for luxury, even for the price point. It's for the consistency it offers. But how do you create buzz around a comfortable bed, a clean room? One answer is stage a live Twitch stream.
Am I live? Am I streaming?
Night
Jesus.
at Premier Inn took a British
what's
creator,
happening here?
blindfolded him and placed him in a mystery Premier Inn. People tuning in could vote on what happened during his stay while he tried to figure out where he was. The event delivered over 881,000 unique viewers. And most importantly, he fell asleep on live stream, proving that you really do know what you're getting with Premier Inn. Learn more about custom campaigns with Brand Innovation Lab at advertising.amazon.com.
Now, going back, I'm just going to go back to a sort of business thought there, and that, if you're in business, that they become obsessed with Gen X,
Yes.
Gen Y, Gen, I don't know, I mean, so many gens, I can't keep up with it, really. Fundamentally, I think it's nonsense, because a brilliant story, brilliantly told, captures people's imagination, and that's what you should be doing rather than worrying about what they're thinking. Give them something that stimulates them and drives them to it. And I think what you do is exactly that. It's kind of, do you sit down and go, well, we want to talk to Gen Ys or Gen Xs or?
I know, I'd probably say I'd like a 4-quadrant movie or something, I think with the festival, we certainly are looking to make sure that we're bringing in a younger,
I understand completely.
A younger
accessibility
audience.
is everything, isn't it?
Exactly. But I do think that there are certain phrases that particularly you see it more in the advertising industry that mean something different to a Gen X versus a baby boomer. There's just, but at the end of the day, I think we all kind of laugh at a lot of the same things, and but it gets to that authenticity then. Just is this ad or spot gonna, how is it gonna resonate?
I think the danger with it, I've always felt it diverts your attention away from the creative process. That actually, why don't we just make an amazing story? You've had a wonderful partnership with Robert De Niro. It's obviously incredibly productive. How does that work? Do you sort of come in a Monday morning and say, let's have a chat, and what are we going to make next?
Well, maybe in the first 5 years or so, which is close to 35 years ago, it worked that way. I think that probably the best part about it is that we've never tried to dissect that. I mean, it doesn't mean that we haven't had our disagreements and huge, massive, arguments about things, as any relationship that is that long would have. But it becomes trust, and at this point,
it's how you collaborate and how you. Yeah, it's very important, isn't it, in collaboration, that you have a kind of everybody has the ability to be able to say what they want.
It's being absolutely honest and straightforward with each other, but it's also there are things that I do that I'm not partnered with Bob on, and that he does, and it's not partnered with me on, and we do certain things together, and I think that's also made it successful, that we're not so like always tied at the hip. And
it's like a musicians often in a band go off and do other little projects, come back together again, and it keeps them stimulated.
Keeps it fresh.
Yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit now about the Tribeca Festival, which after the terrible events of 9/11, you because obviously the area was seriously affected by it. So that process, so you wake up, terrible, 9/11. So you say, what can we do about this? And you come up with this idea of, why don't we have a festival? Again, celebrate creativity, how creativity brings people together, but also rejuvenates a kind of an area, a place. So the genesis of that was?
The genesis of that is, this was our neighborhood, the Trade Center, 8 blocks from here. I was actually coming in that morning. I was supposed to be here at 9 o'clock to have a staff meeting. And my car stopped a block and a half from the first tower when it was hit. And we weren't firefighters, steel workers, so what could we do as artists to give back to our community, to give our community a new memory, something to look forward to? And we decided November of 2001 to do a festival. We had I knew we had one film that we could open with, which was About a Boy, because we had been shooting that the spring of 2001, and it was going to open the spring of 2002. So we knew we had that, and it was more of a civic responsibility to do something and to kind of say to the world, after we had been attacked, that we're still here. And it's artists' voices that end up rising up and can bring people together. That's what we wanted to do. I didn't realize that I had signed long-term commitments with American Express and Anheuser-Busch and all these various companies, but so the fact that it's now going into its 25th year, I still don't believe that, but here we are.
And obviously that sort of creating something like that has kind of pulled in around it all these other people, rejuvenates this, and it's it's one of the things that I'm sort of bemused about why people in government and people in authority don't understand, they don't realise the power of creativity to make a long-lasting effect to an area, a place, a city. We talk about how people build museums and then suddenly everybody wants to go there. Demonstration of how creativity aids to civic well-being, and you did it with the Tribeca Festival. That's rather wonderful.
There you go.
I like that.
Yes, but it's look. It was about how many. There was definitely an uptown-downtown divide, and people were afraid to come downtown. And it was, how could we bring people back downtown? And we did a family street festival. We put big screens on the West Side Highway and had quote drive-ins. We did a big concert with MTV, and people came, and we did it for free. So that first festival had well over 100,000 people down here, and it helped revitalize the community.
And also the economy.
Yes.
So it actually put money back into
without
the
question.
region, the area. Again, creativity revitalizing.
Without question. Doesn't mean the festival has ever made money, but it certainly.
Well, it was not set up to do that. It was set up with it had a purpose.
Absolutely.
And that's crucially important.
it was a mission, and it was a commitment to bring people down here and to have, you know, artists and musicians. At first year, I kept saying that we, you know, that we needed a laugh. We needed to, you know, people needed to be together. And, you know, you also realize you could tell different sides of a story too, because when you're watching a movie together and you're hearing something you might disagree with, you're not yelling back at it, you're listening. And I think that listening is a form that people don't do enough. We don't listen to each other. We just
and a
shout.
shared experience, isn't it? That's
Yes.
the other thing. And again, because I'm not doing this on purpose, I'm putting it back to business and brands, is how people share the experience of a brand or whatever it is. And if it has a kind of a creative element to it, a kind of feeling, an emotion in it, you have a greater opportunity to share an experience with other people. So it's crucially important. It's not all logic. It's not left brain only. It's majority right brain.
So many brands now are doing their own brand work and long form work. I mean, you could go back and say, you know, what's old is new again. You go back to early days of television and soap operas with P&G or Dutch Masters or Ford Theater or whatever they were advertising in. But you know, now you're seeing more and more every. I mean, because we do with Tribeca Studios do a lot of brand work for. And
again, what you can learn from the entertainment industry. Going back to William Goldman, and I read both his books, Adventure of the Screen Trade and Which Lie Did I Tell? And I always used to say to everybody in advertising, they said to me, what book should I read about advertising? And I say, I wouldn't read any book about advertising. The books I would read are William Goldman's books, because you'll learn more on how to write a script or how to write a scene from him, and it'll be the best education you've got in advertising. He does not mention advertising once in any of his books, but you will learn more from that. And that I always remember a great thing he had is when writing a scene, come in late, leave early, and which is just genius, isn't it? And I completely understood what he meant, which is don't over-explain. You know, just keep your audience just wanting a bit more, and you see so many brands when they do things that they try and explain everything. Oh, they may not get that, but they might just work at getting it.
They dumb it down. Yeah. I mean, they underestimate their audiences in so many ways.
Totally. I mean, and that is the worst thing you can do. Yeah. So you've always got to have, I think, ambition in something. I think the entertainment industry shows us how you have to do that and how you have to give the audience something that they can really talk about when they leave that cinema. Does that talkability, do you actually go through a process like that? Do you think about, well, that scene, we've over-explained that, could we, do you analyse it in any way like that? Or?
Yeah, of course, and you end up doing research screenings, and now I've just heard about an AI company that's around the corner that's doing things with synthetic audiences to analyze the various content that is out there, whether it's movies or commercials. So that's interesting. But yes, of course you do. You sit and look at, is it funny, or is it, you know, how could it be funny, or is it emotionally, you know, all those questions that they ask on research screening.
Do you think there's a danger there that you end up sometimes that audience, because it might need a bit longer? Of course, the problem with a lot of movies, when it's in a movie house, if it doesn't make it in the first weekend, it gets pulled. So that's where, you know, people like Netflix and HBO, you have a chance. Do you see that changing? Do you see that? Is that something that you welcome, working more with?
I've been working with, you know, Netflix and Amazon and, you know, HBO for years. But again, you know, it's all changed. I mean, with one thing with Netflix, for example, I did this movie with Ava DuVernay on the Central Park Five, and originally it started out as a movie, and then Ava had gone away on vacation. She came back, said this is really a mini series and should be a 5-part mini series, and then we ended up doing that at Netflix, and we said okay, it'll be a 5-part limited series. Then she was away again. She said, you know what? The 5th episode doesn't make any sense. It needs to be, we need to combine it with the 4th. So suddenly we had episodes of varying length, and we had originally said it was going to be 5, now it's 4. And when you're working with some of the streamers, you don't have the same kind of constraints that you did in broadcast television when you had to, something could only be, it was supposed to be an hour show, but it was really only 15 minutes. So it kind of opens up your creativity in a lot of ways. It allows you to make the best product, to have the best show that you could possibly have. But for a producer like me, it gives me a lot of flexibility. Not just there, but all of a sudden I can look at something and say, oh, this is a short film, this is a documentary, that I have more places I can go sell my wares, sell my stories, than you did 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah, but I do actually quite like that phrase which says, give me the freedom of a tight brief, where sometimes if there's too much, well, it can be whatever you want. And I've got a lot of what they call content now. I call it mostly digital landfill, because nobody has there are no constraints on it. There's no kind of, look, you've got to make it work like that and that way. And it's funny, but I think creativity kind of likes that. It likes toying with, how do I break out of this box? How do I turn that into something more profound, even though within those constraints? So,
well, look, constraints, and sometimes when you have a limited budget, you can almost become more creative by pushing yourself to make it different. And I mean, some of the more creative things that have happened on a set has been when you're told, there's no more money here, figure it out.
What do we do now? Yeah.
Figure it out. You've got so many hours, and why didn't we think of that to begin with? That's much better.
That's so. One of the big things I think that you're very strong on is mentoring. You have a fantastic mentoring background of bringing the next generation on. Is that sort of something that you've always believed from your early days, how you were helped, and that now passing it on to other people? Was that?
I think I wished I had more help, although I was very lucky. And there's just so many people ask. And by the way, the mentorship programs that we do are not just for people at the early stages of their career. It can be people in the middle of their career.
Why not?
And it becomes, and no matter where you are, it actually becomes a great place to meet people and to learn from each other. And they're very intentional communities that we have created within Tribeca on these various programs, because it's, you don't do this business by yourself. If you want to be alone and painting someplace, you can do that alone. But the movie business, entertainment business, is about the community and the partners and the other creatives that you build around you.
You collaborate with,
and that's really where the mentorship programs come from.
And that's lovely that you're saying it's not just for people coming into the industry. You might be halfway through your career, and I need to develop. I need to go on. I need to get better. And that's a great place to sort of be, isn't it?
Yeah.
So going back to a little bit, just thinking about, are you an optimist about the future in terms of the communications industry, the entertainment industry?
I am by nature an optimist, but I am worried about the consolidation of the industry right now. I am concerned that our whole business is all now run by tech companies. There's nobody that comes from that creative world. And it's also been more about what the stock prices are. It is concerning, but change is good. But it's concerning. I like to believe an optimist because you always find a news story and something great and something wonderful will come out of that. The same way in technology, new things come of that. Go back to the days when there was television after radio and people thought, oh, they'll never go to movies again. And you look at all of this stuff and say, okay, if it's on just because you listen to music in your car and you listen to music at home doesn't mean you're not going to go to a concert. So I don't know. It's all, I'm kind of babbling here, but
no, you're not. I think that for me, what that says to me is just also just go and have a better idea.
Yeah.
A better idea, and to use that technology and the facilities around you to really capture people's imagination. You don't give up. You don't go, well, that's it. It's just nonsense. We fundamentally, as beings, want to come together, but we want to come together over great stories that engage us and entertain us.
I found after COVID, people really wanted to be more together. I am finding that Gen X seems to want to go back to movies again. The movie business has been broken in a lot of ways. It's not just the fact that you're not having a lot of original stories although having something like Sinners from Ryan Coogler, whose first movie was at Tribeca, or One Battle After Another. Those are original stories, and people went to them, and that's exciting. But I am feeling that it's also the responsibility of the movie theaters, because there's no great movie palaces anymore. There's the screens are tiny, and that business has to change.
Has to evolve. Yes, you keep evolving, and that's again that creative act of innovation. Innovation is fundamentally important, and it's like the packaging.
Yes,
you change the packaging slightly.
Yeah, but you want to be able to go for something that is not just seeing a new version of another Marvel movie. Those have a place, and those are great. But how do you? What's the sound like? Are you getting the best resolution of a picture that looks different than it does on your phone or at home? There's all these things that make for a better experience that you...
Is that, again, that shared experience? And again, I'm not just doing this on purpose, but that's what brands are about, a shared experience. I've got a pair of Pumas on, and I look around me and I say, how many other people have got a pair of Pumas on? It's a shared, you share an experience.
But it's part of being a club. Oh, okay,
yeah,
you've got those on, you've got them on. Okay, we're like...
Yeah, and it's getting people together to share something which is fundamental, and no matter what technology we create, that is a fundamental human need.
But also with advertising, so much of the stuff is also aspirational.
Yeah.
And so if you're wearing these Pumas, are you going to run better? Are you going to look better? Whatever you're selling, how is it going to make you feel?
Jane, looking back, any mistakes that you'd say, well, I wish I hadn't have done that?
I kind of wish I wasn't in a rush as much as I always, I look at even this building when we did this, and we were really kind of describing WeWork, but we never took this and went and built others because, okay, we got the building done, now we can go make movies, but no, again, I've learned more from my mistakes than my successes. And
they've taught you the danger, I think. I always say, actually, the danger in dwelling on the mistakes is that they can actually inhibit you, because then you get nervous, and then you ooh, I won't try and be daring again, or I was too daring, or whatever?
I feel like so much of this business is about your instincts. If you can't trust your instincts, you don't belong here. I moved when I was 29 to work with Bob, and everyone at the time said, why are you going to work with this actor? And New York I was falling off the face of the earth. I was leaving Hollywood, blah, blah, blah. And that turned out to be okay. I've certainly done some movies I wish would have been better, or could I go try it again? You don't have those opportunities, but I'm lucky, and every project is about something I'm curious in, so I get to dive into these other worlds. And
so I like that. I like that as a piece of advice. Be true to yourself. Do something that you fundamentally believe in, and at least you know one person loves it.
Yeah, I mean, I did this movie Rocky and Bullwinkle. I don't think that poster's on this wall. It should be, but even my mother didn't call me after it opened. You know, it was like, and it was back in the days you were still looking on your landlines, and I couldn't understand. I kept calling the operator. Is my phone working? I'm not sure it's working. I haven't had one phone call, like not even my mother. And then even the studio that would call you, immediately to tell you the grosses, didn't even call me until like Sunday night. You know, this thing was like dead on arrival. I'm like, oh God!
And then you have to survive that and come back, don't
right?
you?
Well, yeah. The good news is I had Meet the Parents with the same studio a few months later. So
that was.
And I don't think Rocky and Bullwinkle was half as bad as people.
It'll come back. It'll have a revival. Jane, we've taken so much of your time. It's been fantastic. Thank you very, very much. That was great.
If you want to explore how creativity can work for you, head over to thebusinessofcreativity.com. See you next time.